What's up, guys? This is Kephas.
Well, we've been having a lot of fun discussions about World of Warcraft on this channel lately. A lot of videos that I've released just talking about the game, the experience in the game, design decisions, and just looking at different ideas and features and changes that the game has made over the years, even comparing retail to classic in many ways. And it's been a lot of fun. People have been very positive. There have been a lot of great discussions, people offering up different perspectives, and I really appreciated it. It's really been nice seeing new people come in and join in the conversation. And recently there was a survey for World of Warcraft that leaked. Sorry, Blizzard, but now that it's leaked, it's kind of fair game, I guess. And I wanted to look at it. This survey is asking players about a hypothetical Classic Plus and what features they would like to see added to that version of the game. I think it would be fun to go through this, give my thoughts on it, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments to different things that you agree with me on, things that you disagree with me on, or just if you're just interested to hear, what I have to say. And don't worry, there will be timestamps because brevity is not my strong suit. When you talk about classic and modern WoW, there kind of exists this dichotomy. There's classic purists for sure, and there are people that love just classic WoW the way it is without any changes, no changes, hashtag no changes, and the good news is you have classic era, which is pretty close to that, and that should never go anywhere. And so anything else that they do, anything Classic Plus, is going to be deviating from that vision of the game. And so it will become less classic in that instance. And I think that the big challenge is that people have different opinions of what makes the game classic, quote unquote. And so that's important. Everybody has a different set of things they like and things they want to see. And so everybody's picture of a perfect World of Warcraft, I guess, or a classic World of Warcraft is going to look different. And that is okay, you guys. It's just a game. There's no reason to get mad or hot under the collar. No one's wrong for what they like. It's all fine. Okay, and so I want you, if you come into this conversation, if you are a purist, this is probably not a conversation that you're going to enjoy. If you're not, though, and you're open to just hearing different perspectives, then this is going to be fun. And if you disagree with something I have to say, that's fine. I'd love to hear about it in the comments, but be respectful. They're not going to get everything right. There are going to be things about it that doesn't match yours or my image of what I would like WoW to be, but I appreciate that they're doing something, and I think that's cool, and I'm happy and excited to see what they do. I thought Season of Discovery was great. I think some people were a little bit too hard on it. I think that it was a lot of fun. A lot of people had a lot of fun with it, and I think it ended pretty good. It wasn't perfect. Sure, no, it wasn't perfect, but it gave me a lot of fun, more fun than I've had with WoW in a very, very long time. I think they learned a lot, and it's exciting to see what's next. So the first feature is playable Shamans on the Alliance side. Obviously, in classic WoW, traditional WoW, Shamans were only Horde, Paladins were only Alliance, and so this would also apply to Paladins being on the Horde side. I think that should be fine. I think it's okay to have Shamans on the Alliance side and Horde Paladin, because I think that primarily your race and class choice and your faction choice should be purely cosmetic. Sure, I guess there's some lore reasons for it, and it helps in that regard to build the world, make the factions feel distinguished. I think it's better to give players the freedom to pick what they want. Overall, I think that having Alliance Shamans and Horde Paladins is fine. I don't think that hurt the game when it happened, which was the next expansion. So I think it's fine. Next is collections, a UI-based storage system for pets, mounts, and toys to free up inventory space. So this is kind of an interesting one. I think about Classic WoW, and I think one of the key differences, with Classic WoW is where the game progressively became more and more menu heavy, and this is one of those areas where sometimes it's a tension between complexity or not complexity, but really just immersion and tedium would be the best way to say it, right? And so what I mean by that is so say you're playing a game I remember Fable 3, right? They didn't want you to have a pause menu. And so what happened was when you hit pause, you went into this other room, this other dimension where you had basically access to all your menu functionality, but it was in the world. You know what I mean? And it was a cool idea, but it was extremely tedious, and it's just like I just would prefer to have a menu, right? So there's this tension that exists, and I think it's a good example of classic WoW versus modern WoW in a lot of ways, where modern WoW stripped a lot of the tedium, but that also stripped a lot of the immersion as well. And you do see this in a lot of games, where Red Dead Redemption 2 is a great example of this, where people love that game, but there are people that feel like it was tedious, and that tedium for other people was immersion, and they were into it, right? And so I think that's the big thing here. But when I look at like the theme of like classic WoW, I do think that it leans more toward immersion over convenience, I guess. And so do I want a UI based storage system for pets, mounts, and toys to free up inventory space? I don't think so. I don't think that would be the greatest thing, but I think that they could maybe do it in a limited way. Like, so my idea is maybe it's something like the way pets work. Like maybe you have your stable master, you can store your mounts there. And if you want to take out a mount, then you have to go to the stable master and switch it. Something like that would be fine. Same with pets. Say if they were to add the pet battle system in classic WoW, they have an opportunity to add, a PC in some form, kind of like how it is in Pokemon, where in the old days you had to go to the Poke Center and get it. And that does add a degree of immersion. Is it tedious? Yes, it is. But sometimes tedium is okay, because it adds a degree of immersion, and so having to go to town to a stable master to change out your mount is part of that, I think. And I think that's okay for classic WoW and in the nature of the game, where you have to go to town to learn new spells, to buy new food, to keep up with your arrows, different things like that. So I think that it's an opportunity to get players back into hubs around other people, different things like that, and it encourages more gameplay outside of just the core loop of getting XP or combat, I guess. So in my opinion, no, but kind of like in a way they could add something, a type of storage system, but I don't think it should just be you can access it from anywhere, in my opinion. So that's my thought. Account-wide collections, making all pets, mounts, and toys available to all characters on your account. And so this is where, like, with me, I guess it kind of contradict myself a little bit, because I think that to a certain extent having account-wide collections is a good thing, and it's mostly because, like, if you do it once, then playing a new character and then doing it all over again, especially for something that's extremely rare, just isn't particularly fun for most people. I don't think that most people want to do that, and I think that there are a lot of people that like having alts, and so I think that the game being more alt friendly, and I think there is an immersive way that you could do it, where your alts are a part of a warband, right, or a family, and you all share stuff together. So if your paladin finds something, then there's no reason why your hunter can't benefit from that. And so that's my logic there, and so it still makes sense, and I think that's fine, because it does add that more account focused mindset, where you do benefit from what your other characters do, and you don't feel like your time is ever being wasted. So they might seem like they contradict in a way, but I don't actually think they do. I think that it makes sense in my mind. So I would be okay with some account-wide things like this, account-wide unlocks and things like that. I think that'd be fine. So I would personally be okay with that. 1 versus 1 duel arenas, why not? I'm never going to do them, but I think people would love them. And when it comes to adding new content, I think it's always going to be a yes from me. Giving people more things to do, even if it's not something that I want to do, would be fine. And I could definitely see a situation where this could be really cool. Having player versus player duel arenas, like a Coliseum or something, would be awesome. And there's a lot they could do with that to give rewards and different things, and it could become a spectacle, so I definitely think that would be an awesome feature. So yes, absolutely. New player character models. I think this one is way more divisive than it probably should be. I think they're oddly, this is one of those things where people are going to have really strong opinions. If they added new player models, I would want to use those. Okay, I think they look better. I prefer modern WoW's look in most ways over classics. I think that classic looks painfully dated in most situations. It's not a deal breaker by any means. But yeah, I think that the new character models are universally better. Having said that, though, I think the best solution, and I don't know exactly how they could do this if they went like full blown modern new characters where you have a lot more customization options, but maybe a version where you can do one or the other, kind of like how Diablo 2 Resurrected does, where you can even switch between a more classic look and a more modern look. They have all the resources for it, so maybe something like that you could opt in or opt out if you want to, and then you will see whichever version that you pick. Yes, but give people the option if you can. In-game events. New events that offer different small quests and casual gameplay around the world. These would release between large updates. I think this would be great. New content, new things to participate in while you're leveling up. I actually think this is something that the game should always have had. I think this would have helped in so many areas, like leveling up, for example, to kind of break the tedium a bit, maybe to add some new ways to level up and new things to do. Obviously, any new content is going to be good if it's fun to do. Small quests, gain more XP, maybe some rep, some rewards, different things like that. Reasons to explore the world. There's some cool thing happening over in Feralas or something. I think I said for Alice, or 1,000 Needles, something cool is happening at the Mirage Raceway. Let's head over there. I think that would be cool. And I actually would say that maybe not even just between large updates, but like throughout the experience, add things in that stick around and maybe happen at different times of the day or different periods, where some event zone wide thing is taking place, or who knows, something like that. I don't think that's exactly what this is getting at. It's saying events, doesn't have to be like what I'm saying, but that's where my mind went. But overall, I mean, yeah, sure. New content, new quests, little things like that. Absolutely. Yes, for sure. Pet battles. Again, I don't see why not. Is it something that I'm going to want to participate in? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, yeah, I would do it. It'd be something else to do, so yeah, sure. Add pet battles. Certainly. Just like with the 1v1 duels, even if it's not something that you personally would enjoy, I don't think that it would harm your experience if it's something that other people wanted to participate in, So yeah, I'd say add pet battles in. Again, I think that, it creates an opportunity for more immersive, interaction in a way, like where, you have, your stations, your pet battle stations, where you go and take, your 3 in and out, or however big the team is, and you store them somewhere. I think that would be kind of a cool idea if they wanted to do that, so yeah, I think that would be kind of cool. But yeah, overall, I think it's a cool idea. I think adding pet battles in will be fine. Leveling professions improvements. Ability to make more usable gear for yourself as you level and be able to craft at level appropriate trade skill levels. So I may be misunderstanding what this one's trying to say. I guess it's saying more gear. I guess is what I'm understanding, is it saying it would scale to your level. I wouldn't want that. I think classic is better having, specific gear that is at a certain level, or something like that. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure, because like one of the things I think about is like, I know when I hit like level around, I'm getting close to level 20. I may not remember the exact level. I know I can get a cloth hood. You know what I mean? Like, it's just part of like that experience. Like, oh, cool. It's something to look forward to. I'll be able to get my first hood. And when I get around this level, I should be able to get my first like male hood, level 40, I can switch to plate. Stuff like that adds a lot of like, expectation and things to look forward to. So I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what this one's. I'm a little confused by this one. If it's adding more gear, maybe a little bit, not too much though. Like, I do think there are times where getting gear can be tedious, and maybe adding a little bit more value to professions would be fine to a certain extent. Maybe not like too much more, but yeah, I guess having some more gear to fill out certain gaps in the leveling process would be okay. So that's mostly fine, I think. But I also think that it's a part of the fun in classic is like going somewhere to get something, like doing a class quest to get a weapon is important, like the paladin weapon, or going to this is just like things I'm thinking of off the top of my head. Like, I know there's a really cool hammer that you can get in Dead Mines. There's one that you can get in that what was that dungeon with the werewolves in Silverpine. I can't think. Oh my God, Shadowfang, is it Shadowfang Keep? I think. Sorry, it's been a while since I've actually ran dungeons in the classic or in the game, old dungeons. I think it's Shadowfang Keep. Either way, I remember going there to get this axe, and I was really excited about when I got it. So I think that like even though it's temporary, it's still like a big accomplishment. So I think that if they start adding in too many gear to professions that you can do, then it does create this situations where people are just going to go for the easier one, and that can take away a bit from the experience. So I can see where this could be a problem. But overall, I don't know, maybe a little bit, just not too much. New class abilities and spells. Absolutely. I think this was the best part about Season of Discovery, was adding in new spells and fleshing out rotations a bit. You know, like in modern WoW, we have this problem, I think, in my opinion, and a lot of people feel this way, where the game has become too complex and, you know, rotations almost feel like there's too much. I think that in Classic, you have the opposite problem, where rotations honestly feel a little bit boring. I mean, there are some little things you can do, like seal twisting and, you know, just weapon swing timing, you know, things like that. But, you know, overall, it's not always fun. You know, playing a warrior leveling isn't the most fun. You know, spamming Frostbolt isn't always fun, or just wanding things down. So, like, yeah, I think having a few more spells to flesh things out a little bit, and like in Season of Discovery, I think it definitely makes some of the classes a lot more fun to play, in more build variety and more options. You know, yeah, I think it's cool. Being able to level up as like a Shakadin, I think that sounds awesome. Gladiator stance for warriors is great. You know, melee hunters, you know, aspect of the Viper, little things like that definitely help in a lot of ways, you know, to kind of make it more fun. You know, not just that it's easier, but it's just that it's more fun. And I think that like why it works in Classic, like say even if you do have like, you have now 4 or 5 cooldowns to manage, the cooldowns in Classic tend to be longer, and it kind of slows down the pace a lot. And so it's a lot easier to manage, because it's not like you're hitting a button every global, right? Like it's not like that in Season of Discovery. It's still relatively slow. And so I think that's fine. So I think absolutely adding in new spells is good, as long as they keep the Classic pace, and it's more about adding variety and depth over just adding more complexity. Okay, so that's my perspective. So do I want Classic to turn into modern WoW this way? No, but certainly I think that all the specs could benefit from more depth, for sure. I think Classic could use that, yes. So I'm all for that. Honor rewards redesign. PvPers, tell me what's the right answer here. I'm not entirely sure. WoW token, no. No, absolutely not. No WoW token in Classic. WoW token shouldn't be in the game, in my opinion. I think the WoW token's one of the worst things they've ever added to the game, and I am saying that as someone who has sold them. I've earned a lot of WoW time with WoW tokens, for sure. The amount of real world money that can be used to bypass so much of this game, I think cheapens it in so many ways for everybody, and I think it sucks that it's there. And I think that's one of the best things about Classic, is it's not there. And I think that adding this into Classic servers would be a huge mistake. And I wish they had never added it in the first place. I wish they had removed it from the game. But yeah, no WoW token in Classic Plus, please. Leave it out. Keep it in your other game and let it continue to fester there. Okay? Yeah, no WoW token. Class talent adjustments. Streamlining and improving class talent trees to make weaker specializations and classes more viable, while still maintaining the overall feel and flow of Classic combat. Yes, absolutely. I'm all for this. Adding in more specializations, I think, is a good idea. You know, this is one of those things where when you start getting into new territory, Classic Plus and all that, you are going to have to shake things up. And, you know, of course, there's always going to be risk. You know, it's never going to be perfect. It's going to create new problems for sure, but that's kind of the point. You know, it's a new phase of discovery. It's always going to have things that can be improved on, but the whole point is to change things up. That's the whole point of Classic Plus, to add more, to change something, to improve things in some way. So yeah, streamlining. We don't like that word too much in Classic WoW, but I'd say that in some ways, you know, as long as you're not like taking things away or trivializing, you know, builds, then I think that it can be very beneficial to create room for more builds to function, because that adds more variety and that adds more player expression, and I think that's good in any game. So yes, absolutely. Account-wide perks and progression system. A system to allow you to gather points and spend them on account-wide bonuses such as quality of life and convenience, encouraging playing alts or specializing in specific activities. So this is an interesting one because, you know, there are words in here that scare us, those of us that like classic WoW. Like convenience is one of those, quality of life, right? And that the stuff they added that changed the game and made it what we didn't like, you know, well, in some ways, yes. And so I think that there could be a knee-jerk reaction here to say, no, don't do this. This is just gonna take us where we were before. The truth is it depends on what you mean by quality of life and convenience. Okay. Kind of going off my other account-wide stance, I think that having account-wide unlocks can be a good thing. And I think that it can encourage alts, you know, playing alts in you know, other activities, right? So yes, just depending on what you mean by quality of life and convenience, right? So, you know, say you add an account-wide bank. I think that's fine. You know, I think it's fine to simplify sharing your items with your other account-wide party members, or you know, account characters, I guess. You know, your family, your warband, right? I think that's okay. I think that's a good thing. You know, but if you start getting into like heirlooms, you know, then there does become a problem, because, you know, you're speeding up leveling, right? And that could be a problem if you trivialize the leveling experience and it becomes the norm that it's way more trivial now. That could be a problem. Now, having said that though, you know, say you did add a bit of an XP boost, you know, there was a time when I was leveling in Classic where there was a Joyous Journeys buff. And this is where that spectrum of what I like comes in. I personally think that Classic WoW leveling is better in most ways, but I do think it's just a little bit too slow. And whenever the Joyous Journeys, I think it was like a 50% XP buff came in, I was enjoying the leveling process a lot more. And the reason why wasn't just because I was leveling faster, but because I wasn't hitting as many dead spots. And, you know, maybe I'm not the perfect leveler, but there are times when I'm leveling in Classic where I have to kind of like grind a bit if I'm not like wanting to jump in dungeons and whatnot, you know, which, you know, it's usually more beneficial to grind in quests where you can. But I think that like that increase in pace did make it a little bit better without completely trivializing it, you know what I mean? And so I think that a small XP boost, if that's a quality of life feature, I think that would be okay as long as you could turn it off and it was optional. Maybe that would be fine, but again, you know, it just depends on how it's implemented and how it feels in the game. I think a better option, rather than just increasing XP speed, is adding more things to do during the leveling process to freshen things up, like zone events and different things. So that might be a better option than, say, speeding it up, you know. But in terms of like a bank or something, like where you can share your items or your mounts or your pets, different things like that, I think that kind of stuff is great for account wide, because then, say, you know, you're leveling up a rogue and, you know, you need leather armor, but your leather worker is your druid. Well, now you can easily send that armor over to your rogue, and it's not such a big deal, right? That can be huge, and that can help out a lot in terms of just, you know, account wide, like alt friendliness. So yeah, it depends on what it is, and it depends on what they mean. It could be fine, it could definitely not be fine, and it can make Classic feel considerably less classic in my mind, I guess. Playable high elves, yeah, add them in. You know what, I'll be honest, I've been playing a little bit of Turtle WoW and I'm playing a high elf, and it's awesome. And I think that having them be both Horde and Alliance is totally fine. But yeah, adding in high elves, even adding in other races that we've got in modern WoW, I think would be fine. You know, I think that, you know, adding in high elves or blood elves, whatever you want to call them, adding in goblins is fine. I think that, you know, certain things like that can be fine. So it just depends on what they want to do. But yeah, certainly adding in high elves would be cool. Revisiting known but unexplored zones. So visiting zones that were a part of Warcraft's history but were never playable in original World of Warcraft. So that would be Mount Hyjal, Old Doom, Gilneas, and yes, add those in. I think that would be great. I think there are some zones that exist that could even use a little bit more, like Azshara would be a good example. That would be one where you could maybe add a little bit more things to do there. Would be kind of cool. But yes, certainly adding in, Mount Hyjal, Uldum, Gilneas, the Scarlet, is it the Scarlet Enclave? I think is one up by Eastern Plaguelands. That's another one. So yeah, adding those in would be awesome. So yeah, absolutely, more content's good. Player housing, interesting. Instance personalized housing for players and guilds. I think this is fine. Yeah, I'd be for this. Absolutely. I think again, it's more content. It's fun. The thing about player housing, as long as you're not able to do everything at your house and you still have to go out into the world and do stuff, that's fine. Yes. So I think that player housing would be fine. Again, if it's something that's maybe not for you, that's fine. But I think there are a lot of people that would play Classic WoW that would love to have a house. So yeah, I would be all for it, and I would definitely do it. Achievements, a system to track game milestones and accomplishments. So here's the thing. Part of me, like, my initial thing is like, yeah, sure, it's fun to get achievements, but I think that like, and this is like more of like a grand scheme of things in the modern realm of gaming, how games are and how they reward us. I think that achievements have become this kind of like way to make you feel like you're being rewarded for accomplishing something. And I think that achievements for me are nice, and it's like, oh cool, there's the achievement pop up, there's a dopamine hit. But I think that like they're really empty. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, cool, I platinum this game, I got this really hard achievement, but you don't actually get a reward. Like, you don't get something in game that shows that you achieved something. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's just for you. Yay, I fell really far and didn't die. Achievements are fine as long as they don't replace actual rewards. And I think that like the achievements that people like in WoW nowadays are ones like in modern WoW are ones that also give you a reward, whether it's a new mount or a new pet, some other account-wide unlock, something. And I think those are the achievements that people care about the most and like the most, because it's not so much about getting an achievement. It's about this challenge benefiting me in the world, in the lived world that I'm in, and this is the cool thing that I get for going through this and actually achieving this. And I think that's a better way to track and show your milestones and your accomplishments, is by giving you something in the game, and player housing is a great opportunity for this, because like, say you kill Onyxia, you can just put her head on over your fireplace, right? Something like that, because you did it, you killed her, you got the reward, and there it is, it's in your house, right? Stuff like that. So yes, it's fine as long as you're still giving meaningful in-game rewards along with those achievements. Cross-realm play, ability to group with friends from other realms for dungeons, battlegrounds, and other instanced activities. This is a tough one, because in a lot of ways, I think it would be great if realms didn't exist and we could all just play together. That can get kind of crazy, because people are everywhere, and you can't just have this limited space in the world be overpopulated and never be able to do anything. So there's a practical reason for why realms exist, or even layers, if you want that. But I think there is a culture in Classic WoW that likes to have server identity. I don't know how big that culture is, but I can certainly understand it, where if you're seeing the same people all the time, that you're living in this world and it's always the same people, then I think that is important. And I think that does, like on our server, we told a story, like say you have those 1v1 arenas, and say there are two guys on your server that are like the biggest, most decked out dudes on the server, and they're going to go fight in the arena. We should go check them out. They're going to 1v1 in the arena. That could be a thing that adds a lot of like player driven immersion, where your server is telling a story. That's like an idealist perspective, right? And that's what can happen and does happen sometimes. And I've even experienced things like that on servers that I've played on. So it does happen. Now, does that outweigh the need at times for there to be cross-realm play or layered, servers, where you need more people, and you want to be able to play with your friends, and you don't want to have to start all over again or something like that. I think that like if it's to play with your friends, to me, the simple solution is just to switch servers, or somebody has to switch, and it sucks, but it's not a problem in a couple months, but in another way, it's also about when servers become lower population, and those are problems as well, where now this server's dead and I'm on this dead server and I don't want to start all over again. I'm just going to quit. Right. But I don't know, man. I feel like classic WoW server identity is really important. I think there are benefits to having that. And while I do wish that we could all just play together, maybe there's a good reason for there to be server boundaries. Yeah, I don't know. I guess like I'm kind of mixed on this one, because I see a practical need along with like an ideal and often real experience. So I guess it just depends, but I'm gonna lean towards no on cross realm play, but I could be wrong, and it just depends on the reality of what Classic Plus were to turn into. Honor system redesign. A ground up redesign of the honor system, removing the hard honor cap, making the system more evergreen and continually engaging. I can't comment on this too much, but I've heard a lot of people say that the old PvP system has not aged well, and so maybe this would make that better. So I think that this would be good. If I were to PvP, I think that I would certainly want the reward system to be easy and not something I have to fight against. So I think that certainly removing caps can be fine, and certainly if the goal is to make the system more consistent and evergreen, that's a word I like to hear a lot, so I think that it could be fine. But again, take my opinion here especially with a grain of salt, because I don't PvP. War mode, no. First, no, absolutely not. There needs to be PvP servers. You need to be always on. That is the nature of the PvP server, is that you can't just go to town and do it when you feel like it. It's something that you opt into, and it should be permanent, I think. And so you have normal servers, you have PvP servers. I think that is important, especially for this older version of the game, especially if you're keeping servers intact. I think that when you go into a PvP server, and I've leveled on PvP servers in the past, I think it is a crucial for that experience that everybody's on the same page, and that everybody knows that when you're out in the world, you are fair game. And that is something that you opted into when you chose to play on a PvP server. So no to war mode, leave that in modern cross realm WoW. There's nothing wrong with it in that era of the game where you're not, preserving these old ideas. But there is absolutely a reason to have a PvP mode that you cannot turn off, and it's important because it creates that framework for what that server experience is going to be like. So that's my take on that one. Brand new zones, completely new playable areas with unique lore added to Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor. I think this is a cool idea. Again, new is good. New zones, new content, new areas to explore, new stories to tell, new quests to do is all good. So yes, absolutely add this in. 20 player raids, new 20 player focused raid dungeons, and 40 player raids, new 40 player focused raid dungeons. So I think that there is a spectacle to having a 40 player raid for sure. And I think that if you can achieve it, then it's something that's an experience, I think that, it can be done. So sure. I mean, I guess if you want to do that, that's fine. I'm definitely of the mindset more these days that I like there to be things for everybody to do, whether you're a part of a 40-man group or you're by yourself. And I know that not everybody shares that view. But, I think that social interaction is a way more broad term than people treat it. And so I think it's just important that people are having fun and doing what they want to do and how they want to engage with the world. And I think that the more room you give people to engage with it on their terms, the better. So for people that like 40-man raids, I think that it would be good to have more content for them. Same with 20, same with 10, same with 5, same with 1. Graphical improvements, lighting, shadows, surface reflections. Yes, add this in. Sure. If you want to make it optional, fine. But yeah, graphical improvements are are 100%, in my opinion, always going to be good. I think the new game looks better than the old game in most situations, and that's just my opinion, and that's what I think. So yes, new trade skills, new primary and secondary professions. So I guess like cooking, or well, you already have cooking, I guess like jewel crafting, that would be it. Stuff like that. Yeah, I think they're fine. Add new professions in. Yes, I think that could be cool. It depends, and the thing is like, it depends on what the professions do, what benefits they give, what they're connected to, what they could potentially take away a need for. As long as they supplement the goal of this lived-in world, and they're adding more incentive to go out into that world, they're not trivializing too much of the core gameplay, then I think that new professions can absolutely be great. So yes, it just depends on what they are. Like say you add in player housing and you have a carpenter, and a woodcutter. That could be awesome, and that could be great to have in Classic WoW, something like that, because it gives you incentive to go out into the world. It creates a needed profession for a new system, and I think that could be awesome. So stuff like that, yes. If you were to say add in inscription, and you create a glyph that you will make your pet happy when you mend pet, then that can be bad, because that completely undermines the pet happiness system and makes it trivial. So in that instance, a new profession, in my opinion, would not be good, because it takes something away from the game. But there are other things that could certainly augment the experience and make it better. So it just really depends. Graphical texture improvements and resolution upgrades. Again, it's graphical improvements. My answer is yes. Make it optional if you want to, but for me, it's a yes. New battleground. Absolutely. New content, new gameplay, fresh ideas. Yes, add in new battlegrounds. Sure, why not? I'm never going to do them. I don't PvP, but for people that do them, it would be great. So new race and class combinations. Sure. Add in human hunters if you want to. Add in undead paladins. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. Add in Tauren paladins. Yes, I think it's good. Giving people more variety and more choices, and letting players express themselves, I think is more important than vague lore ideas that most people really aren't engaging with anyways. New classes, character classes that are completely new to any version of World of Warcraft. So not Death Knights, monks, demon hunters, evokers. I think this is a good idea, and I don't see why not. That's kind of the idea of Classic Plus, is to add in new things to the game, new ideas. You could even add in more specializations for current classes if you wanted to. I think that could be cool as well. And maybe even there's an idea where, I don't know, maybe you can do like an ascension thing where you have your base class and you have your specs, but you can extend them into something else. I don't know, something like that, or just create all new classes. Sure, why not? I don't see a problem with it. I think it could be cool. It could create this situation where this class in Classic WoW is awesome. Maybe you could add this to retail someday. You have those situations as well. So yeah, it certainly gives developers an opportunity to brainstorm and try out new ideas for the game overall. So I think it's cool, and I think it could be a lot of fun. So yes, I'm all for adding new classes to Classic WoW. Yeah. 10-player raids. Again, yeah, sure. People like, 10-player raids. Cross-realm guilds, if you have cross-realm cross-play, then yes. If you want to keep server identity, then absolutely not. Transmog, the ability to change your appearance of your equipped items. Transmogs will only be visible in rested areas, dungeons, or raids. No open world PvP or no battlegrounds. In that case, that kind of limits the big like drawback that people had, which is that you knew what you were up against based on what the person was wearing, and I think that's a good point. So but yeah, I think that having transmog is a good thing. It's important, again, that you like what you're looking at. I think that like looking like a clown wearing multicolored armor is not something that I would prefer. If I had the option to make my character always wear tier 2 or something like that, if I had it, then I would be all for that. And so I'm all for transmog. I think it's a good thing. I thought this was kind of fun. It's fun to go through all those features. I think there are more features. I think there are more things to explore. I didn't talk about like UI, improvements, like things to add that maybe Modern WoW has. Like, for example, the personal resource bar. I think having that in Classic WoW would be awesome. It's very helpful for me. I don't think that it really takes away from the game. I think it's mostly an accessibility thing, just a way to kind of easily track your health. And it also anchors it to you. So I think that was awesome addition to the game. You know, because like Classic WoW does have action cam. It does have controller support. You know, it has some modern UI ideas, but there are just some random features that it doesn't have. So like that would be one that I think would be good. Optional quest outlines, you know, in terms of like, you know, where the quest objects are in the world, you know, stuff like that. Like, you know, so like, there are some UI features I think they could have added. It is a shame that they didn't talk about those in this survey. Maybe that's a future video. If you'd like me to talk about a future video where I talk about some modern WoW UI things I'd like to see in Classic for accessibility, by all means, feel free to ask. Maybe that's something I'll look into doing in the future. Might make some people mad because there are real purists out there, but I do have my thoughts on that. Either way, you guys, this was fun. Am I right about everything? Probably not. Are you allowed to disagree with me? Absolutely. And it's fine. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Just be respectful. But with all that being said, I will see you guys on the next one.
Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is Kephas. Until next time.